we need systems of informatics, techniques of information processing, in order to get the idea what it may mean for my part. It takes time. This is why once we talk about the market efficiency, which is a big theory within finance, we've got to understand, yes, in the longer run markets are efficient. It means that whatever factor plays on the share value, a bond value, it's going to be reflected on its price. So you cannot normally have overpricing of a stock or underpricing of a stock for a long time. But within a short time, because information has not matured and correctly processed yet, it can be wrong. So what price you see in the market for a product, for a share, for a bond, for an option, may not be the correct one. So we should not be deceived by spontaneous information in the market. They can be wrong, they can be exaggerated, they can be built on hopes, false expectations, and they may crumble. And this is where we get to the question of risk and volatility, which we've been discussing. And we said how we measure the risk. And we came to the idea of variance and standard deviation. And we discussed that standard deviation gives a numerical expression for your risk, and this makes you able to compare 2 or 200 projects with one another. Expected values, and later on, once you get the standard deviation for that, it doesn't matter if the project is only $10,000 or $10 million, it's going to be the same standard deviation. Then you can compare the riskability or volatility of that investment and make a comparison and come to a right decision. So, to sum up this discussion, we said the stakeholders are the shareholders and management are the agents. Managements are the agents of the stakeholders via the board, because it's not direct. It's not the shareholders directly who appoint management. No, they appoint the board of directors, and board of directors appoint top managers, and top managers appoint lower level managers. Apart from them, we have other stakeholders, whereby bondholders, they have also an interest in the company. So bondholders are the banks or are the private people who buy the company, the corporate bonds. The one who buys corporate bonds is expecting the coupon value. Coupon value is interest paid. Normally it's paid 6 monthly, normally, but there are different time periods, yearly and so on and so forth. So you calculate the annual return on your bond. Well, then of course, you can see, imagine I have $10,000. I want to buy a corporate bond, Microsoft bond. Then the question is, Microsoft bond will give me more interest than Treasury bond. Could you say, Jason, why?
Well, it's riskier.
It is riskier.
The government backs.
Treasury is risk-free. It means that the government of United States guarantees it. Even if Microsoft is a very strong company, but it is riskier than American government. This is why, if it doesn't give higher return, it would not motivate you to invest your money on their bond. Okay? And this is calculable, of course, because once you can quantify the risk, of course, it's one of the thorniest problems. It's very difficult. So risk analysts would try to quantify the risk, which you can see is difficult. We were talking about the decision on the probability of return. Is it 1/3, 1/4? The chance of this one, what is the chances of making a loss? What is the chances of making a profit? What is the chances of getting neutrally out? No profit, no loss. Is it equal 1/3, 1/3, 1/3? Or is it 10% chance of loss and 60% chance of profit? So this decision requires a different source of knowledge. And of course, MBA courses give specialized courses on risk analysis. So you can have a course, a 4 months course on risk analysis only. It doesn't mean that then you become gurus and you become specialists and you can always decide. No, but gives you techniques and insights into determining the degree of risk on different assets. Okay, and the market is full of these people. So the market does have the analysis and then sets these volatilities quantified, and through that gets to a value. So your bondholders are also the stakeholders. It means they have an interest. But they are not exposed to bigger risk because they are by law entitled to the value of their bond. What if the company goes bankrupt? But the company doesn't go bankrupt normally overnight. If they see the company is on demise, they will sell their bonds, they will sell their shares in the market, which will of course exacerbate the bankruptcy of the company. If they start selling, the company will get bankrupt sooner, quickly. Okay, but it doesn't mean that when the company goes bankrupt they lose all. No, the main losers are going to be shareholders, in case they do not sell out in the good time and stay.
They could potentially lose their investment though, the bondholders.
Of course they could, but once they feel the signs, they will be able to sell their shares in the market. The market may not pay the full value, lower value, but whoever gets out sooner, then they can of course sell it. But you see, it is going to be loss. It is then up to shareholders' side at which stage they sell. It is a risk taking anyway. You may sell at cheap price and later on the company gets its fortunes again and the shares value may rise. Then you may regret that why did I sell it. But okay, this is a decision on investment and you are open, you're exposed to risks. But when the company goes bankrupt and there is some money left in the pot, it means that, well, imagine that the company started with $100 million. Now it's gone bankrupt, there's only $50 million. Well, the first people to receive their money are the people who worked for the company. Imagine that you've got your salaries and wages. That is the first one to go. Before anybody can touch the pot, it is the salaried people and wages, which is, yes.
So in a company right now, the company is going bankrupt. The people who caused the bankrupt will get their money first before shareholders?
Yes, the people who lend because it's debt. You have to pay your debt before you could pay people like your profit. Because what you pay the shareholders are the retained earnings or the earnings after your expenses.
That's right.
There's no earnings because they lost.
It is lost.
The company is bankrupt, so I mean the reverse should be the case now.
The company is bankrupt, okay, but there is some money in the pot. If there's remaining, if total bankrupt, there's nothing, which of course a rare situation cannot happen. But whatever there's some residual value by selling your assets and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
Then administration, which we call administration, it means government authority, which take care of. This company went into administration, it means that it is bankrupt. The bankruptcy authority in each country will take care of it. They will sell in auction, whatever they have. And then imagine that they have only 50% of all their dues, obligations. Then there's a question of primacy. Who has the primacy? Number one are the wage holders. Wage and the salaries, they've got to pay. Later on, you have your debts. Debts have also different degrees. Debts to the banks or to the bondholders, that's next. Later comes the preferred stock. Later comes common stock. So 1, 2, 3, there are shares which are, but in case the value remaining is less, they will get proportionally to what remains.
Yeah, but also to add to that, they also start selling the things that they have. So let's say the company has property. Like let's say they didn't make any money, but they have property. So now they have to sell their property. They have to sell. They have to sell their assets. You know,
Sure.
They have auctions of different things that the company has, cars and
whatever they do, their assets, all their assets will be sold.
Until all the debt holders are paid. And whatever else goes to the shareholders.
Okay.
That's right. So the total value of debt holders and wages will be paid.
Then in that case, what it means is, if you have a company and you're a hiring employee, obviously you want to protect yourself by making sure in the contract that, you know, they have no incentive to run down the company, because if they run down the company and they still get paid, I don't understand. Like if I'm a CEO and, you know, I mean,
Of course.
we run down the company, but yet you guys still owe me like 20 million or $2 million in salary. Like any real business person will not, you know, pay
Yes,
you.
right. But
So
imagine, that's right.
But
I understand what you're saying.
others.
But you see, the wages and salaries are a question of months. Bankruptcy doesn't really happen that quickly. That company goes, it's a process. That's the
Okay.
company losing. During this period, great many things will happen. Shareholders will sell, bondholders may sell, and so on and so forth, right? And there are always alarm signals going out, the company is going down,
Okay.
right? And normally, the blame on going down is not put on the employees, it is on the top management. So top management has got to try. So we can't say that, well, I'm running bankrupt, you still have a right to your wage. Of course, they have a right to the wages, and of course there are laws of laying them off. You can give them a notice, say economic bankruptcy or economic unemployment, and retire 30% of our employees. If they can rescue, by jettisoning. You know, jettison is when a ship is sinking and you have your valuable cargo, you say, throw it in the water. By throwing it into the water, you can save the life of your boat. This is called jettisoning. You may jettison in a company. It means you may lay off 30%, 40% of your staff. It is also lawful. Give them their notices, or you can give them less in salary. It means that you can renew your contracts and say, because we're not doing well, everybody is expected to cut its wage and salary by 10%, by 20%. I'm giving you notice. Those who want to do that, welcome to stay. Otherwise, the notice is served in 3 months' time, you are laid off. So those who are accepted to take lower wages, they will stay. So there are ways of trying to save the company. They will do all the best. But in case the worst comes to worst, and the company goes bankrupt, I'm just talking about the primacy of who has the right. The first one will be wages and salaries. They've got to be paid in full. In case there's money in the pot, they've got to pay them in full. Later on is taxes. Taxes have got to be paid. After wages, it's taxes got to be paid. Then it is the bondholders. They're entitled to the full value of their money. Later, whatever remains, that the residue, that is a share of shareholders. And shareholders also have different degrees of priority. You have the preferred stock, who would have primacy. Imagine the first, you have this limited amount of money, but the first to be paid are the preferred stock. Later on are the common stock of the company. Okay, these are what we call the stockholders. To add something, sometimes, I mean, there is discussion is unfinished and the debate is going on that, well, should company care only for stakeholders? Or even for society? Or even for government? Or even for public? Of course, especially in Germany and in Japan, this discussion has been very prevalent. And some companies have said our stakeholders is the whole society. So groups, charity groups, all public welfare, it's also our responsibility. Yes, but you can say that, but practically it's very difficult, because as we have seen, measurement of performance is based on certain criteria. That's value maximization with shareholders, and we have seen how complicated it is. But if your goal is so large that you want to also increase and maximize the welfare for the public, you're indeed taking over the government's responsibility in here. It's very difficult to measure, and not only difficulty of measurement, but also conflict of interest. What if the increase in welfare of the general public conflicts with increase in value of your shareholders? Which one would take the primacy? So these are the areas. Recently, this trend has been reversed. Even Germany and Japan, they have resorted to US model, where the main job of the company is value maximization for shareholders, because that's measurable and you have a market for it. Otherwise,